Let's imagine that vaccines had never been invented. Would we be able to live a healthy life? Which diseases would be the most dangerous ones to be afraid of? Would our healthcare system still be the same? And last but not least, would we even have survived until now? Let us find out together today and here on Let's Imagine. Please consider subscribing. It's free, it's easy, and you're signed up to see more imaginational craziness. It is difficult to determine when vaccinations began. To fight the smallpox in China, some sources claim that practices date back to 200 BC. However, vaccinations as we know it today had nothing to do with the practices of that time. The old methods involved crushing the smallpox scab and blowing the substance into the nostril, or carving substances from a smallpox wound into the skin. Since then, mankind has had to endure a wide variety of diseases like diphtheria, the measles or typhoid fever. However, the world's first vaccination was performed on May 14, 1796 and was also for smallpox. Edward Jenner, an English physician and scientist, inoculated 8-year-old James Phipps with matter from cowpox. He suffered a local reaction and felt poorly for several days, but made a full recovery and most importantly remained healthy. Health has always been one of the highest goods for mankind, which is why this development was inevitable. Over the course of time, pandemics have repeatedly claimed large numbers of lives, especially nowadays as diseases can spread and mutate more easily due to the large number of people. Without vaccines, diseases would develop into problems that claim incredibly large amounts of lives. So for the most part, not everyone would still be able to live a healthy life without vaccines. The demographic of the human species would change dramatically, as elderly people would suffer more from influenza and pneumonia, and most likely more people would die because of complications. Therefore, the human population today would certainly be many times smaller. But without vaccines, the flu wouldn't be our biggest problem. There are far more viruses with a higher mortality rate. Rabies, for example, which is really only found in animals these days, has a rate of 100% without treatment. Some strains of Ebola also have fertility rates up to 71%. Compared to these figures, the mortality rate of COVID-19, which is currently between 2 and 4%, sounds comparatively harmless. Without vaccines, our only opportunity to prevent those diseases would be to quarantine and to isolate some countries to stop the spread. However, dealing with the virus would depend heavily on the level of development and civilian behavior of the country. Health systems could only address the symptoms and not the cause, which also would make treatments highly dependent on the country's wealth. Those without the means to access or pay for healthcare would be the most impacted. It is questionable if even those with the means could be treated, as antibiotics probably would no longer work efficiently. With this consideration, it is even questionable whether the healthcare system today would look the same as we know it in any shape or form. If antibiotics stopped working, the treatment of any viral disease would be left almost entirely to the human immune system. But would humanity even survive without vaccines? As a species, we probably would be alright, especially those of us lucky enough to live in a developed nation and with access to healthcare. What is doubtful, however, is whether we as a species today would even be at the same stage of development as we are right now. More people increase the number of innovations and inventions that have ultimately brought humanity to where it is now. Without vaccinations, we would most likely have to think about something else than what to watch next on Netflix. In the end, nobody can really say what a world without vaccines would look like. The entire development of the last 1,000 years of human history would have to be questioned and reconsidered. What we can say though is that we need to take all these facts into consideration. The rest is up for your imagination. How would you imagine a world without vaccines? Let us know in the comments.